When the eyes of the world are on the World Cup, there's zero margin for error. The championship isn't just won on tactical genius, it's won on physical survival. But chiropractic schools don't prepare you for the degree of high-stakes pressure that you'll face in situations like that. Working at this level isn't about routine adjustments in a quiet office. It's about surviving championship pressures. You're managing athletes who refuse to slow down, even if their bodies may only be held together by tape and prayer. The stress is real, the clock is ticking, and your only job is to find a way to keep those million-dollar players on the field. Welcome back to another episode of Chiropractical. I'm your host, Jon Kec. And with the World Cup in full swing, the timing of today's episode couldn't be more perfect. If you're a chiropractic student trying to figure out how do you navigate your future career, or a seasoned DC running a family practice, but you really want to become the go-to authority in your local community for sports-based care, you'll want to grab a pen for this one. We aren't just talking adjusting techniques today. We're talking about mindset and the commitment it takes to build a partnership with your patient. And to help me unpack all this is Dr. Jason Levy. He's the team chiropractor for the New York Jets, the New Jersey Devils, and with the World Cup here in full swing, it seems only fitting to have him as our guest because he's also the team chiropractor for the New York Red Bulls of the MLS and the Gotham FC of the NWSL. Dr. Levy spent years helping professional athletes navigate the physical demands of elite competition, and the lessons he's learned extend far beyond the soccer pitch. Dr. Jason Levy, welcome to the show. How are we doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited for you to be here. I think it's a really topical time, I guess, with the World Cup coming up and, your involvement with, beyond soccer, all sports, but for the purpose of our conversation today, maybe a little more of the New York Red Bulls and the Gotham FC teams. So I'm excited to have you here.
Thanks for, let's get right to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I feel like this is probably an exceptionally busy time of year for you beyond, like we mentioned, the soccer stuff. You also do some work with the Jets and, exciting times in New York. So probably a little more stress than normal, but good stress all around. But, you're pushing yourself pretty hard right now, keeping everybody healthy. Is that something that you kind of plan for? Do you have a routine, a way that you kind of look at setting up your days, your weeks, your months that maybe mirrors some of the athletes you work with, or anything that you could kind of share with us to get your mind ready for this time of year?
You know what? It's a busy time, and I'm used to being busy. Choosing to work with professional teams is early mornings and late nights at times. But having family support is huge. My wife understands that I'm going to be gone a lot over the weekends and things of that nature. But this time right now we're in the off-season program with the Jets, so early mornings, but the weekends are a little more free. Red Bull, Gotham will keep us busy on the weekends with games, but otherwise it's a little calmer right now.
Yeah, well, good. Kind of the calm before the storm of training camp in August, I guess.
Oh yeah. Yeah, when the end of July hits, people ask me about my summer, and the summer is pretty short because once the end of July hits and training camp starts, it's go time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so you're kind of in a lull right now. What about some of the athletes that you're seeing, right? You're always working on keeping them healthy, but do you see some of the mental side of their stress, I guess we'll say, their training regimen? Do you help with any of that, or what are some tips and tricks that you've seen them kind of take on that have really helped them manage stress?
You know what, I'll tell you, for me personally, I like to build meaningful relationships with the players. I really don't talk a lot about the games. I don't ask them about their coaches or their other players, their other teammates. We just talk about life. I get to know them. It's really fun right now. We have a bunch of rookies in with the Jets, and just getting to know them, where they're from. Are they married? Are they not married? Some guys are getting married the end of this month when we go on break. So it's really cool to get to know these players as just like you would in your office. So that's my favorite part, and I think I keep it light and really positive as well.
Yeah. So with that, some of the rookies, whether it's in the NFL, players coming out of college for either the soccer teams, how much experience with chiropractic do they have? Are you kind of their first entry point? Are a lot of them coming out of bigger programs where they've had a lot of treatment before?
Yeah, it's all over the map. Some guys and gals have had chiropractic their whole lives. Some of them have parents or relatives are chiropractors, and that's really cool. But some of them have never had chiropractic, and it's kind of strange. You assume, especially some guys who've gone to some big schools. I would have thought that every big school would have a chiropractor, big college football program, and I think most of them do. But doesn't mean that all of the athletes will visit the chiropractor. And sometimes, I am their first experience with the chiropractor. So, really good communication is important. And of course, once we, as any of us team chiros or anybody in their office gets their hands on a patient, they're going to be coming back for more.
Yeah. Do you have any advocates in any of the locker rooms, not named specifically, but people that, when those rookies walk in or they make a trade, new guy comes in, they're going to be like, look, you got to see him right now, today, first stop.
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly the veterans, the players have been on the team for a while. They really understand the value of chiropractic and how good they feel and how well they perform. And so they're the biggest proponents. And then, of course, the trainers will and the physical therapists will also recommend that players see me during the season.
Yeah. What about that? Some of that interaction with other medical providers, right? The PTs, massage therapists, the team medical director. How does that kind of interplay into onboarding one, but also just your general day-to-day with these teams? How do you kind of manage those relationships?
Yeah, I mean, communication is key, right? Having really good communication with trainers, being part of the team, not being the guy who could, help and solve every problem. I'm really, really grateful and blessed to have amazing relationships with literally all the docs and all the trainers with the teams that I work with. And that's what keeps it fun. Certainly working on the players is great and being on the field and all that is awesome. But, you spend a lot of time with the trainers, the physical therapists, the docs, and having great relationships with them is what really makes it the most fun.
With that, and this is going to sound negative when I say it at first, and I don't mean it that way. Is there kind of a stay in your lane mentality? Do you have to kind of live in that world where you got to be careful about getting too far outside of the physical realm, maybe, right? Venturing into any kind of underlying stuff that is better handled under a different provider? Or are you you have some freedom to roam a little bit, let's say?
Well, yeah, good question. I mean, I think, again, it goes back to communication. If something comes up with an athlete, I'll definitely speak with the head trainer or the docs about, what kind of I picked up and, kind of have a conversation about what might be best for that athlete. At times it might be me, doing some other things with the athlete. At times the docs might say, or docs or trainers might just say, hey, thanks for letting us know. And we're going to do X, Y, Z with that athlete. So again, communication is key.
Well, let's kind of focus on soccer a little bit, right? So, and with the World Cup going on, I would imagine, are the Red Bulls in Gotham kind of in a break right now or the Red Bull more specifically, Red Bulls that is more specifically in a break right now?
They are, yeah.
Okay.
They've been on break. They're actually coming back, I believe, next week. What's interesting is, so Red Bull literally just built an 80,000 acre, facility.
Okay.
Brand new, that currently the Brazilian World Cup team is training there right now.
Okay.
So, it's phenomenal, this place.
When you're in a world like the World Cup, right? An environment, I should say, like the World Cup, you've got extremely tight timelines, right? The tournament happens when the tournament happens, and they've got games scheduled every 3 to 4 days, I think, at this point for the national teams. How do you kind of manage something like that, where you've got an athlete in such a tight window, something they've been training for the last 3.5 years, and 3 weeks before the tournament, 3 days before the tournament, they pull a hamstring. You've got to figure out a way to keep them healthy enough to play, but you're on a compressed time frame. How do you manage something like that with those athletes?
Yeah, I mean, we, getting our hands, it's all hands on deck, and it's of course working with the athlete to try to, kind of calm the injury down, and then it's a return to play that, like you said, time is tough, and these are, listen, in MLS and NFL and all the other sports, sometimes you have to hold the player out, right? With World Cup, it's a tougher decision. So listen, like I said, it's all hands on deck, and everybody's gonna do everything they possibly can. These athletes are getting treatment around the clock, and that's what I talk to my patients in the office, who might come in for whatever type of injury, and I let them, they say, how do these guys get back so quick? I said, they are getting treatment around the clock. I mean, there are therapies on these guys in meeting rooms, and or on the planes, and as much as they could get therapy and treatment, they're getting it.
What would you say the most common injuries you see with soccer players are?
I mean, in general, of course, there's, your lower extremity injuries. There's your ankle sprains, your knee injuries. I did a little work on those that once they settled down. But for me, a lot of hips, groin, hip flexors, hamstrings,
Okay.
glutes. But plenty of guys have low back tightness, pain, neck tightness. Not necessarily a whole lot of upper extremity, except for the goalies, of course, who land on their shoulders all the time.
Sure.
But again, a lot of back, neck, and lower extremity injuries.
Okay. And beyond just the adjustment, what would you say? Because when you start looking at sports-related chiropractic modalities, right, you see all kinds of stuff out there. There's active release, factor, myofascial release, Graston, all that stuff. What would you say that you use the most of everything you've taken, and insert anything I didn't mention as well?
Yeah, and those are all terrific techniques and approaches. I think the thing I use the most, of course, is active release techniques, just because it's such a hands-on approach. I will do some instrument-assisted work as well. That just sometimes takes a little longer, depending upon how much time I have with the player. But definitely a lot of active release techniques. Found that to be super, super helpful and really valuable to know.
And is there a lot of carryover there with those techniques and your everyday patients in your private practice?
Oh, sure. Yeah, you know what it is, before I worked with any of these professional teams, I started out with a family practice, and I would work on high school athletes. And back then we had the local paper, and I'd read the local paper to see, hey, how this person doing their track event, how they doing their soccer game, their tennis match. And I realized, man, I really enjoy working with athletes. And I was an athlete growing up, and so totally mismanaged on some different injuries back in the day. So I kind of realized, we all were, right? I kind of realized that I enjoyed working with athletes. So at that point, which was, 20 years ago, I decided to find out who were the men and women, the chiropractors who were working with the Olympians, work with the different sports teams. And I went and visited them and spoke with them on the phone, and kind of figured out, okay, what are they doing in the training rooms and in their own offices? And then I learned those approaches and then brought them back to my, kind of patient base. And then kind of luckily, got the call actually from Red Bull first, and had the experience and had the tools, and the rest is history. So.
Well, let's dive into that history a little bit. So I think I had it too, right? There's a very common perspective in a lot of chiropractic students of this is what they want to do, right? They want to work with athletes. They want to work with colleges, professional teams, but there's never really a job listing that says, New York Jets chiropractor wanted. You're never going to find that. So for you, the Red Bull opportunity, how did that come up? Did they just call you? Did you know somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody? What was the situation?
Yeah, it's crazy. I guess I think in 2006, the soccer team here used to be called the New York, New Jersey Metro Stars. And then Red Bull Energy Drink actually bought them. And then I guess towards maybe the middle of the season, and then 2007, that season, they brought in a new head trainer, new medical staff, and the head trainer, the assistant trainer was working at a local hospital rehab center close by. And we had some patients in common, so we kind of knew of each other. So he gave my name to the head trainer, and the head trainer, I think he emailed me first. And I remember I probably have the email saved somewhere because, it was one of those, you're reading it, you're like, holy cow. And they reached out to me first, and it was just so awesome. And the coolest thing is when the first day that I went to the training center, and again, where we are now, like I said, this 80,000 acre training center is so much better than where we started. We started at this local university and this really old training room. I mean, there was probably asbestos around the pipes, no joke. And I remember, it was a rainy day, and I went to meet the head trainer, and I had my portable table, and I put the portable table around. I had my rain jacket on, and the head trainer starts walking me around the facility to meet the different coaches, and I met the head coach, who's a guy named Bruce Arena, who's a Hall of Fame coach, a U.S. men's national team coach. And literally, I didn't have my jacket off, and he's like, "Hey, Jake, can you look at my neck for me, please?" And I was like, "Sure, coach." Set up the table and got to work on him, and things went great. But that was quite the start in sports chiropractic.
So, hit the ground running for sure.
Hit the ground running. Yeah, that was my first team.
Yeah. I think it's amazing. I think that's another misconception that a lot of people have. They think they're going to find the way, whatever that may be, to get the job with the Red Bull, to get the job with the Jets, which we haven't mentioned in your case, the Devils, right? Across multiple sports, people think that these opportunities are out there, and they are, and they think they're going to walk into these multi-million-dollar facilities. And I think, as you just proved, that's oftentimes not really the case, right? You've got to be able to be kind of adaptive and nimble and deal with sideline treatments and rainy day treatments. And I don't know, maybe you can share if you've ever run into this, but I would imagine you always hear, so we're an Iowa-based company, right? You always hear the story about the University of Iowa's visitors locker room, that it was pink and all that stuff to mess with other teams. And not that they would ever put substandard equipment in any treatment rooms to alter care for athletes, but I have to imagine that if you look at the Jets locker room and the visitors locker room, there's a clear difference between them, right? So have you ever run into any situations like that? Don't have to name the stadium or the team, but any opposing venues where it was a challenge for one reason or another?
Yeah, well, I think there are some standards in the NFL for training rooms, but I will say that all the team chiropractors will agree with me that, I mean, there are times, and I'm not exaggerating, that our portable tables are set up 3 feet from the urinal. I mean,
yeah,
it's crazy. Keep your head forward, or near the bathroom stalls. There's
Sure.
another stadium that I literally am set up in the shower stalls, and there are times when guys are taking showers before the game, and it's steamy, and I can't even wear my glasses. So it's comical. I'm definitely spoiled in our home training room where I have my own room, but all the team chiros will tell you it is the wild, wild west at some of these older stadiums. The new ones are cavernous and have plenty of space and are nice, but the older stadiums, not so great.
And again, you don't have to necessarily name the facility or the team. Is there any stadium in any of the sports you work that you dread going to right now?
I mean, there's one, sure. Gillette Stadium I don't love because it's 45 minutes from any airport. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm near the stalls in the bathroom, but forget that. I really should have a candle near the table, which I don't. But literally, I mean, any team, away team that's played there after the game, let's say it's a Thursday night, Monday night, Sunday night game, and the game finishes at close to midnight. After got a shower and do their interviews, you now have a 45-minute bus ride to the airport. So it's just like, so a 1 o'clock game there is fine, but man, those late night games, you're getting home way later than most people would expect.
We've kind of talked about getting your opportunity, that is, with a professional team, and how to set yourself up, making sure you've got the right skill set underneath you. Connections matter, which I think goes back to what we talked about earlier too. Communication matters, right? Making sure that the people you work with know that you're somebody they can trust. But what other advice would you have? Pretend you're a young chiropractor, or just maybe a veteran moving to a brand new place for one reason or another. You have absolutely no connections. You're just starting a practice. What approach can you take to set yourself up in a position where you can start facilitating these relationships and fostering something that may grow to a high school program, a college program, a professional program later? How do you really set that firm foundation as the new guy in town, not necessarily from a treatment perspective, but personally and professionally?
Yeah, I think, being available and wanting to help. I think for me, when I first started, approaching tennis clubs, and I would do preventing shoulder injuries and tennis player workshops for free. Doing foam roller workshops. I've done that at REI.
Okay.
If you do go to approach an athletic director or a coach, and at any level, being available, just wanting to help. And again, I think doing different workshops, disseminating information, giving value and giving of yourself. I think all that over time comes back to you. Not being like, hey, come to my office, but I just think giving and helping, and being really honest and true that that's what you're looking to do. I think that goes a long way. And then, one person, then the referral thing, whole thing happens, right? Yeah, you help one person, and I was lucky. The guy who painted my office was, I remember he was painting my office before I opened up, and he told me he'd have this chronic groin problem and tried a whole bunch of things. And I said, you know what, Steve, when I open up, I'm going to call you because, your pelvis might be off, blah, blah, blah. And, I opened up, he came in, I think he was patient number 31.
Okay.
I treated him, he did great. And it turned out he was a high school track coach. And next thing you know, he was sending me athletes for, hip flexor issues, hamstring issues, groin issues, left and right. And it just grew. And then he told another coach. And so I think, all that really makes a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's, the being giving of your time idea is something I think I hear a lot in talking to people, regardless of what their practice base is, right? To develop a strong family practice, be giving of your time. To get a strong relationship with a coach in an athletic program, be giving of your time. And I think that's something that people, I know, I guess I'm speaking from experience here, right? When I came out of school, I had a ton of time. And it was like, I always had that focus of, I have to get a patient in the door, and I have to get busy, and I have to grow, and I have to do all these things. And I lost sight of the fact that I had a ton of time. And the best way to do that was to be giving of that time. So you feel like you're in this loop of doing all this. I'm going to go introduce myself to people, but I'm not going to do the other thing that takes a little more time, but it's probably going to be more successful. So I think that's great advice. And I think, like I said, I hear it with almost everybody I talk to. So it's got to be right.
Yeah, when I started, I had nobody, and at first, gosh, I don't know how many years, I was like, okay, this patient came from this event, this patient came from this workshop, and then finally it gained some momentum, and then the referrals started happening, but it took some time.
Yeah.
And like you said, giving up my time to be out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that, if you could go back when you were, fresh out of school now, specifically for this one, graduating from Parker, and give yourself some advice, what would it be?
Yeah, I think, I always, and to this day, I love being a lifetime learner. So I always, I'm always trying to learn and grow both, personally and professionally. I think that's huge. I think I would say, hey, consistently show up every day. I've never gone to work ever dreading going to work. I love what I do. And every day, as I'm sure every chiropractor out there hopefully loves going to work and helping people. And most importantly, have fun. Have fun.
Sure.
If we're not having fun, it's not worth it, right? I mean, there are going to be challenges, but ultimately have fun. And I think that's what I would, tell myself. And I still tell myself this.
Yeah. And then that's the biggest thing is, right, you've got to enjoy what you're doing. Because if you're allowed to have a bad day, but if you have a lot of bad days in a row, I think patients feel it, which is like coworkers feel it, right? And it makes it much less enjoyable for them to come see you, which there's such a psychological component to healing that if they're not happy coming in, you're behind the 8 ball already.
Sure.
For sure. Well, we did a similar chat right around the start of the NFL season with Dr. Sokoloff with the Ravens. He had a really crazy story for us. I want to see if you have one, and whatever that may mean, right? Your version of crazy, whether it's good crazy, bad crazy, both. But what is if you got sat down in a room and said, give me your absolute best story with all the work you've done, again, Jets, Devils, any of the soccer teams, anything, what is it?
Right. It's funny. I remember Dr. Sox, his story was really great. I mean, I wish I was in a Super Bowl, had a Super Bowl story. I think what's fun, I remember a time when our starting quarterback was in a game and he was getting just knocked around, sacked a whole bunch. He was getting pretty beat up. It was pretty apparent. And his neck got pretty jacked up. And I remember working on him. The trainer sent him over during halftime. And then, pretty much after the game, one of the sideline reporters was talking to him and saying, hey, I'm not going to name his name, but hey, looks like you got knocked around a bunch, how you doing? And he was like, oh no, I'm doing great. I saw the chiropractor during halftime and I'm feeling so much better now. And, it was fun. Like I didn't actually see that, but I got in the locker room and my phone was in the locker room and, kind of my phone had blown up because all my friends were like, got shout out. And that was kind of fun. So it wasn't like I did anything miraculous, but definitely a fun kind of story. And it's always neat when your friends and your patients, see or hear something like that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thinking back to, I think the Coach Arena story, kind of fits in that realm too, right? He's talking about being stuck in a stairwell with, half an overhead light out or whatever the mustiness of the situation was, right? You're out there with a table that's barely set up in the rain, trying to adjust the a U.S. Soccer Hall of Famer. So, I love the stories y'all have. I feel like, everybody thinks it would be so amazing to be a team chiropractor. And I'm sure it is, but you still get these just crazy moments that you don't expect, which are just awesome. So that's fantastic.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely imagine. Yeah. But one of the things I like to do with anybody and everybody we talk to is just anything we didn't talk about, anything that you'd want to share with students or colleagues that are thinking about getting into the sports realm. Top 3, top 5 things that you would suggest or recommend to them to consider that maybe that's a blind spot for them right now.
Well, again, I think that, if you're in school, certainly join the sports chiropractic type clubs. If you're in whatever state you are in, look for the sports chiropractic organizations. In New Jersey, there are some phenomenal chiropractors. And I'm just fortunate to be able to work with some of these professional teams. There are great chiropractors who've been to the Olympics and work with, plenty of high-end athletes in the New Jersey Sports Council. It's incredible. So I think, getting involved in the different clubs in school and councils when you're in your state organizations is huge. I think, again, active release techniques is great. Any of the instrument-assisted soft tissue approaches are awesome. Some of the kinesiotaping approaches are great too to have in your back pocket. And again, have fun learning, have fun treating.
Well, very much appreciate the time today. I know even though it's your slow time of year, it's still a very busy time of year. So thank you for carving out a little bit for us here. And thanks for all the information and wisdom.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I'm really grateful for this opportunity. Had a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. And have a fantastic rest of your week.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks again, Dr. Levy. As you've heard today, sports chiropractic isn't just about working on the sidelines of professional matches or helping athletes compete on the world's biggest stages. It's about understanding performance, building trust, solving problems, and helping people achieve their goals. Whether they're playing in a World Cup match, competing in a weekend 5K, or really just trying to live a healthier life. Dr. Jason Levy's journey is a reminder that success in chiropractic isn't defined by where you practice, but on the impact that you make. For students listening, the path into sports chiropractic may not be straightforward, but those opportunities often come to people who choose to consistently show up, keep learning, and building meaningful relationships along the way. And for the practicing chiropractor out there, perhaps the biggest takeaway is this: every patient is an athlete in something. They all have goals, challenges, and moments that matter to them. Our job is to help them perform at their best, whatever that may look like. If you found today's episode helpful, be sure to subscribe and share this podcast with a colleague. It'd be great if you could leave us a review as well, as it'll help more chiropractors find us here at Chiropractical. Be sure to watch the video version of this podcast on the NCMIC YouTube channel. And if you have any questions for the show or for me, you can email me directly at jkec@ncmic.com. Thank you for listening. I'm Jon Kec, and this has been Chiropractical. We'll see you again soon.